Welcome, everyone, back again this week for episode 71 of CovidCastJA, brought to you by the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica in association with the NCB Group and the JMMB Group. I'm Lysandra Ricketts, and I am back as your host this evening. And Rochelle will be back next week. So I'm back. I think this is my third time guest hosting for Rochelle, and I enjoy it every time. I enjoy engaging with you all. So please remember to type in the chat with us, chat with me, and we are going to be able to answer your questions and really engage with you because this is what COVIDcast is about. Before we jump into this week's episode, which is bouncing back from your financial exhaustion, I actually have to tell you about something really exciting that we're doing towards the end of this month in October. It is the Building Wealth Conference being put on by the PSOJ Access to Finance panel. That's the group that runs and puts on COVIDcast every week for you guys. We're going to have a 2-day conference on building wealth on October 22nd and 24th. And day one is going to be about building business wealth. So this is for your business. And day two will be about generational wealth, building generational wealth for individuals, for families, and so on. So it's going to be really, really exciting. October 22nd and October 24th. Mark your calendars. Registration is currently open, and you can go over to smallbusinessportal.com to register. Type. Go over there, register. All right. Also, while you're over there on smallbusinessportal.com, remember to subscribe to the COVIDcast mailing list so that you can get our memos that we put out every single week. Lauri, one of our guests, actually wrote a fantastic memo for us this week. So if you want to download it and have that resource at the tips of fingertips, make sure you subscribe to the mailing list over at smallbusinessportal.com. So tonight we have our special guests on to discuss how we're going to bounce back from financial exhaustion. The pandemic has been really challenging for all of us, especially for business owners, but for everyone. And there's been so much uncertainty, so much anxiety, and we are burnt out, depleted, and exhausted from all of this uncertainty and anxiety that we've been experiencing. So first, what exactly do I mean by financial exhaustion? This is when you've had so much anxiety around money and cash flow and the future of money and cash flow that you've been left completely depleted and burned out. That's what we mean. And today we have two guests who are going to talk about those two words. We have Lauri-Ann Ainsworth, who is the CEO of the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship, and she's a speaker and a coach and a podcaster and all sorts of amazing things. She's going to talk about the exhaustion piece, and she's on first. And then we have Nadia Jervis, who is on from NCB, who's going to talk about the financial piece of financial exhaustion. So we're going to start with a question around well-being when working and taking care of ourselves during this really uncertain time. And first up, we have Lauri-Ann Ainsworth from the Branson Center, who's going to talk to us about that. So let me introduce her properly. Lauri-Ann Ainsworth is the CEO of the Branson Center, as I've mentioned, which is the region's leading accelerator for Caribbean entrepreneurs. She's also a speaker, executive coach, a mom of 2 amazing kids, an entrepreneur, and a wellness advocate. She also launched her own podcast this year called The Thriving CEO, a podcast for successful but overwhelmed entrepreneurs that helps them to feel less overwhelmed while still achieving results. Welcome to the show, Lauri.
Hi, Lysandra. Thanks for having me on the show. Great to see you.
You too. I absolutely love having Lauri on the show because Lauri and I have a very close relationship that goes way back when I ran into her at a farmer's market one Saturday afternoon when I had just become the CEO of the Branson Center myself way back in the day. And Lauri had just left her previous role. And I was like, this woman is amazing. She's strategic. She has this great brand and marketing background. I have to invite her to join the team at the Branson Center. And then, of course, she was the one who took over from me when I stepped down. So, Lauri, we want to hear about your story. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about how you got to this point in your life.
Well, thank you so much, Lysandra. All those wonderful words. Yes, indeed, we have such a history. It goes beyond the farmers market, even before that, right? So,
Yes.
but that we love to tell that story about meeting at the farmers market. It certainly was kismet. It was destiny. Um, what a place to have met. But my story. Okay, I know we don't have the whole night, so I'm going to package it up as much as possible.
Yes.
So, as you said, my background is in marketing. So, I had done marketing for many, many, many years. I was in corporate Jamaica doing marketing, and I had just become a new mom. And I was like, okay, it's time for me to explore my entrepreneurial dreams, jump, look for freedom and fulfillment, and be able to be at home with my daughter and do all these things. So, I jumped. And like many entrepreneurs, I tried so many things. I fell, I got bruised, right? You know, the entrepreneurial journey is not easy.
No.
And I was spending my nights doing proposals, spending my days delivering these proposals, getting new clients in, realizing that you had to manage a team and moving away further and further from what I actually love to do to take on this new role of running this business and being a part of this business. Eventually,
Yes.
that led to a lot of burnout.
Yeah.
And I left that behind. I didn't leave it behind, but I had to stop a lot of what I was doing and I decided to take on consulting work. And that's how I started working with entrepreneurs, doing that. And we met at the farmers market. I was at the Branson Center and I continued to have wellness as a part of my life because
Yes.
when I went through that healing journey, that's what I call it, my healing journey, I had to make myself a priority, even in my aspirations and all the drive that I had to be a great entrepreneur, business person, as well as a family person. Wellness was now a part of my life. So when you decided to step down and I stepped in to that role, here we are.
Yes.
How many years later? So, I mean, that's a story that's wrapped up really tightly.
Yes, and I remember when I was so stressed out as CEO, Lori was the one who was doing teaching me about Reiki, and you gave a whole session to our whole team about Ayurveda. And then when you became the CEO, the team really branded you as the wellness CEO. Tell us why the team branded you as that.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was taking over, I really wanted to bring myself to the role. You know, every CEO, someone who's taking over wants to make sure that they put their stamp on it. And I wanted to normalize wellness with entrepreneurship. We were very heavily focused on getting investment for entrepreneurs, seeing their businesses grow. But what I realized talking to so many entrepreneurs was that the people behind these businesses were actually burning out. And in order for us to actually help the businesses to grow, we have to help the people. So I really wanted to focus on the entrepreneurs themselves. And
Yes.
so I wanted to bring that wellness aspect to them. And I'll tell you, one particular interaction really stood out for me. I was talking to one of the entrepreneurs, and they were like, you know, if I knew this is how it was going to be in terms of growing a business, I would have stayed small.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's just like the antithesis of what we want from the Branson Center. We want businesses
Right.
to grow, we want the economy to grow. But if we don't have entrepreneurs taking care of themselves and are able to grow those businesses, and we're not going to achieve that mission. So that's why I kind of took on that wellness aspect to really
Mhm.
focus on the entrepreneurs.
I love that story because I remember that transition from pushing on the finance piece and scaling, and you really brought in the take care of yourself as a business owner first before you can really grow the business. And I love that. I want to pause here to say good night to all the wonderful guests. Sandra Palmer, welcome. We love seeing you every single week. Stalwart guests and for CovidCast, Vivine, Wally, Narda, Ventura, Tamika, welcome. So glad to see all of you. So Lori, so you took us
Yeah.
on this journey of wellness. You took the entrepreneurs on the journey of wellness because you went on this healing journey yourself, a really beautiful journey where you explored all these different things, Eastern, Western sources of
Yeah.
healing. So, and you've brought that really to bear with the entrepreneurs that you coach and that you lead at the Branson Center. So, talk to us about some time, some instances of financial exhaustion that you've witnessed yourself among the business owners that you've worked with? What does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing when COVID hit, our entrepreneurs were impacted immediately. Most people were impacted immediately. And the financial exhaustion that they experienced was anxiety of, how do I keep a team? How do I make this
Yes.
business stay afloat? How do I survive this? And so a lot of entrepreneurs are making knee-jerk reactions. Should I close the business? Should I, get rid of teams? Should I get rid of this? And not really focusing on, okay, hold up, what's going on here? How do I, plan to ensure that I'm looking at different scenarios? I don't know when this thing is going to end. So there was a lot of anxiety there. And anxiety was on top of the anxiety that was already there as a
Yes.
business owner. And that's what I want to emphasize, that it wasn't just because of the pandemic. It was something that existed. And what I found was that this was a time when entrepreneurs started to realize that the work that they were doing was really chasing the money,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not sustainable, because
Yes.
when they were chasing the money is when they were doing a lot of pivoting versus, am I doing a business that means something to me? Is a
Mm-hmm.
business purpose driven? Does it have, significance to me? Is it using my skills to the best of my ability to actually offer a service for people who I want to serve, which inevitably will help you in the long run? It's more sustainable model. And that's what I find more entrepreneurs are now interested in. How
Yes.
can I create something for the long term and not just the financial anxiety of success and status and power? And so that's what we were really seeing.
Absolutely. And I, even when you found something that you love doing, you have to make sure that the business model that you choose to pursue can sustain the life that you want. That's something that I'm seeing a lot too. A lot of entrepreneurs choose business models that require them to run themselves into the ground. So now, coming out of COVID, hopefully we'll be starting to shift the conversation to, how do you choose a model that enables the lifestyle that you want, and
Yeah,
not just, as you said, chasing the money.
exactly.
Rajesh is saying, just like Lauri-Ann, I'm in marketing but continue to try to be entrepreneurial. I myself have suffered multiple burnouts and I'm looking forward to this advice. So
Yeah,
before we move forward, Laurie, my question for you is, I know that you can burn out on multiple different levels of energy. You can
yeah.
burn out from your mind, your spirit, from your physically, of course, the physical exhaustion. So you have a system, you have a whole structure to deal with these different types of burnout. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love acronyms. I love putting things so people can, digest it easily. And I call
Yeah.
this one my 3S framework. And it really is about, it boils down to three things that we need in our lives, regardless of where you are in your business or where you are in life. We all need systems, support, and self-care. And I'll just walk
Yeah.
you through them quickly. So systems is really, how can you start putting systems in place in your business and in your life? Things that are repeatable. Can you create a process for them so
Mhm.
that you make it easier for you? You see,
Yes.
every day that we wake up, we have a finite amount of willpower. And when we're
Mhm.
using that willpower on decisions or repeating the same thing or relearning something because we don't have a system in place, you've depleted all of that willpower and you aren't able to use it for bigger decisions. So start creating, if you look at creating systems around what you do, automation, use technology to automate things. And you'd be very surprised the things that you can automate in your business if you actually
Yeah.
take the time to kind of, look through the process and look for, is there technology can do that? Can I send canned responses to emails that are coming in? Can I filter those emails so I'm not spending an hour of my time going
Yeah.
through my inbox? But yeah, creating systems even in your personal life, creating habits, doing habit stacking. So, when you wake up in the morning to take care of yourself, when you brush your teeth, maybe you want to tack on taking your vitamins. So creating a system so that you don't forget and so that it make life easier for you. So that's the systems.
Well, I
Um,
want to pause there, Laurie, because I
sure.
want to ask you for an example from your life, which I just love your story. I love your journey. What small system has helped you the most, so we can make this more personal and tangible for the audience?
Yeah, so I mean that's definitely one of them. So taking your vitamins. So like I've had to do that kind of stacking because I'll forget. With my children, I forget those things, so I want to make sure that they are taking their vitamins. So once I give them breakfast in the morning, I give them vitamins. So that's something that
Mm,
I'm stacking on top of it. But I try to have my morning routine. So therefore, I try
yes.
to keep my power hour together. All of the things
Yes.
that I need to get done in that morning. I like to do meditation. I like to do a little bit of yoga or a little bit of stretching, do my gratitude, just get me in a frame of mind. Of course, it's going to look different for everybody,
Yeah.
right? But a part of my system is also having different times. So I have admin time, and admin time happens twice a day. In the mornings, I'll check email, and in the evenings, I'll check email. I'm not a
Yes.
slave to my email. I have sacred time. That's a time that, like my morning routine or the times with my children,
Mm.
family time is sacred time. So I structure my day with that kind of system so that I can also have focus time where I'm doing my focus work and I can let people know that I'm not available, I'm doing some serious work, and I kind of schedule myself that way.
Yes, I love that. And I actually want to double click on this vitamins thing because I realized this year if I am iron deficient, as a lot of women are, and a lot of women in Jamaica are, and if I'm not taking my vitamins in the morning, the whole day is shot for me. I really see a difference. So even though it seems like something so small, when we're talking about energy and burnout, there are a couple things we have to be doing in order to create energy in ourselves. A lot of people think you go to sleep, you wake up, and you have energy, and it doesn't work like that. You have to be working out, you have to be having your sacred time, your family time, and you have to be taking your vitamins to create that energy in yourself.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, absolutely.
so
It's
that's
habit
systems.
stacking.
Exactly. So now what's the second S? Systems, and
Right. So
then
we need systems and then support. We all
yes.
need support, especially entrepreneurs. Like when people hear support, people are like, okay, I don't have enough money to hire a team, right? And
Yeah.
that's one of the first things that come up. And support doesn't necessarily mean you have to hire a team. Maybe you are outsourcing something. People don't think about things like that. Maybe you need to outsource, some graphic work that you would probably sit on Canva trying to do yourself, and
Oh,
you could pay somebody $5 to do
yes.
that, right?
Yeah.
Um, you could also ask for, you need support even from family, if you have children. I know I rely on family for support,
Yeah.
and it's okay to ask for help. And not
Mm.
only support with your work, and it's okay to ask people to support you mentally. If you need somebody who you need to offload on, I don't suggest calling somebody and offloading on them. Always ask people for permission if they're ready to receive this kind of baggage. Have your support system where you have girlfriends or you have friends that you can have that outlet. So it's
Yes.
important to get the support. And when I talk about support, it's also important to recognize what you are good at and what you're not good at,
Mm. Yes,
and
I'm not good at
outsource
Canva.
those things. Outsource those things,
Yes.
because that's what gives a lot of entrepreneurs who are trying to bootstrap, or who are trying to do it all themselves. It's very difficult. And I find that when we become business owners or business leaders, we assume that you have to take on a different personality,
Yeah.
different tasks, which you do. But I like to call that the 30%. All these new skills that you have to have, keep that in 30% of tasks that you're doing. 70% of the tasks that you're doing should be around your zone of genius, the thing that you're great at. So, don't think about changing who you are
Yeah.
necessarily when you start a business. Think about strengthening those strengths. How can you
Yeah.
get even better at that? And that's going to give you a lot more peace of mind.
Yes,
That's the support.
absolutely. So I want to ask our audience, please type in, do you have the right systems? What systems do you guys have? Do you have support? When I get the most burnt out, Laurie, just to share a personal story, is when I feel the most unsupported. Like I'm doing everything because I'm an entrepreneur now myself, right?
Yes.
So when I feel like I'm doing everything and I'm not leaning on help enough is when I get the most depleted. Narda says, speaking from experience, don't take everything on. Really spend time in your zone of genius. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely,
Yes.
Nardo. I agree with that, Lysandra. And I think it's easy for all of us to get out of there. I know when I even took over the role of CEO, I thought, okay, I had to know how to do all of these things. And it was exhausting. And I
Yes.
recognized that I was getting into that point of, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted and I am stressed. I can't get down that road of burnout anymore.
Yeah.
And we forget quickly. And I had to pull on my team. Hey, I need you to use your expertise in
Yes.
this because that's not my zone. Can you
Yes.
do this? And I'm going to stay in my zone because that's where I operate best and that's where I can be the best leader. So, I mean, it happens to all of us.
Yes, absolutely. And I would even add just taking the time out to remember to reach out to my friends and have a glass of wine with them, because
Yeah.
that gives me so much energy. It's not, they're not supporting me on business tasks, but just to take my head away from business, 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 work, 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 and take some time for myself. That type of support, really important for me as well. David Steele. Haha. Who is this guy? Who is David Steele? Do you know Lori by any chance, David Steele? David Steele is Lauri-Ann's partner in life. Okay, so David says, so true. Get the right people on the bus before moving forward. And this allows you to focus on your zone of genius and excel. And Lori is definitely the right people to be on your bus, David
Red wine
Steele,
is critical.
in this journey called life.
Yes, he hears me talk about it all the time because I mean, it's so important to stay in your zone of genius. And everyone who I come in contact with, I always encourage them, what is it that you're good at? What is that you want to do? Because that's going to help you get off of that burnout bus.
Yes. Wally British says he takes his vitamins, but how do you come back when your monthly payments are in arrears? Nadia, our second guest, is really going to talk about this financial piece of financial exhaustion, Wally. So stay tuned because Nadia is going to exactly address that. But Laura, do you want to say anything on that question?
I mean, here's the thing, and I think that this is not something that's unique to anyone. And at the end of the day, when we are experiencing these kind of stresses and anxieties, particularly thinking about not being able to pay the bills, we only exasperate that when we don't have these other things in place. And so it's not that putting these things in place is going to pay the bill, but it's going to help you with your well-being and help you to manage it in a better way and perhaps give you the clarity of mind to figure out, okay, how do I get out of this? When you're a constant state of worry, 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 and anxiety, it's only going to make the situation worse. So I know Nadia will touch on the financial piece, but from a wellness perspective, it will support.
Absolutely. And Vivine says the team is very important. That helps prevent burnout. So what's your final S, Lori?
Yes, self-care. We all have to have self-care, right? And self-care is not just about pampering yourself. It's not just about the essentials, which you should absolutely get in. Get enough sleep. Sleep is so important. Exercise, nutrition, but it's also about doing things that you know are right for you. It's about creating boundaries for yourself. A lot of us don't set those boundaries with our children, with our family, with our team members, with work. When you do that, when you're able to set boundaries, knowing what environment is right for you and what you need, then that is an act of self-care. Also giving yourself the time to take your vitamins, to give yourself the time to exercise. I exercised today. I was so I don't like exercising. I actually hate it. But it's an act of self-care because I know at the end of it I actually feel good. I know I'm doing something for myself and I make sure that I get my sleep in. Sleep is very important to me. And I think if that's one thing I would say to people, sleep. Wally, sleepless nights, you need some sleep.
Yes. So for Wally, I understand the anxiety that he's going through because my first year as a full-time entrepreneur, and I talked to you about it, Laurie, was just the most financial anxiety I've ever had in my life. That level of uncertainty, that feeling that you have when your monthly payments are coming up and you don't have the money in the bank account to pay it, as Wally had said before. So Wally, what I had to do actually to get myself out of that downward spiral of anxiety in order to be able to plan and be more rational and not panic and actually take very logical steps, I had to first grab a hold of myself to this self-care point, Lori. And there was a podcast and a couple books that I read that started putting thoughts in my head to calm myself down, thoughts that I couldn't reach for myself. and just starting to have more trust in myself and more belief that I'm going to figure a way out of this, that even if I hit rock bottom, I am capable of navigating my way out of that. And I had to train myself out of that panic and anxiety before I could even move forward to the cash side of things.
Right.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Laurie?
Yeah, no, I think that was so well said, Lysandra. And that's the thing about it. It's, the support piece. It's when you can get support, whether it's from people around you, whether it's from something to listen to, a podcast, something that's inspirational, because you can't give yourself that support. So
Yes,
important. And I think that was well said. And I totally agree with what you're saying. If you are able to look after yourself and move yourself out of that downward spiral, start
yes,
seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, and that's the first step, and you're going to see momentum moving you forward. So totally agree with what you
exactly.
said.
And you might not feel positive right in the moment. For me, it was more of a acceptance than positivity, right? So Wally, I'm talking directly to you here, is that sometimes people are like, oh, positive, you think your way out of things. And when you're in the grip of that anxiety, that's just not possible. And so you really have to just accept, this is where I am, this is what is the reality, and then start planning your way out of it. And we're going to talk about some of those tactics soon. Wally's saying that's hard when a loan officer and a bailiff are calling and pressuring you. How do I ignore that to self-care? And the last point I'll say on this, Wally, is that it's not about ignoring it. It's about recognizing that you cannot
Mhm.
manage that unless you first just take a breath and a moment for yourself and give yourself that energy that I can figure this out. I will figure this out some way. Any final
Exactly.
tips for Laurie? Laurie?
Yeah, no, again, yes, absolutely. And the thing about it is, guys, we're talking about financial exhaustion and burnout because we're experiencing this. We're experiencing
Yes,
that anxiety. We're experiencing the pressure of people calling, bills needing to be paid. That is there. We can't control that right now, but you can control your emotions. You can control how you respond to it. And as Lissandra mentioned before, giving yourself the ability to think clearly and logically
yeah,
through self-care is what's going to get you out of that. It's going to allow you to
exactly.
make different decisions um, that are in service to you getting out of that. So I think that's really important.
And Vivian is adding, focus on solutions, talk about it with someone you trust. Yes, that support, expertise, asking questions, talking through it with people, give thanks for life and negotiate patience. I love that. Oh, sorry, payments. Give thanks for life. Yes, love that, Vivian. All right, Laurie. So, one last question for you, which
Yeah.
is I'm going to combine these two questions. So, the Branson Center has been doing a few things to help entrepreneurs navigate these anxious and uncertain times. And you've also started a brand called the Thriving CEO. So, talk to
Yeah.
us about those two things and how you're helping entrepreneurs navigate these times.
Sure. So, from a Branson Center perspective, when the pandemic hit, we realized that entrepreneurs could not be accelerated because they were having these financial difficulties. What they needed was prevention, recovery.
Yes,
And so we went and created an entire recovery and resilience program to support entrepreneurs when it's time for growth. And I know Nadia is going to be talking about some of these things, but things like scenario planning, looking at, from a strategic perspective, what could possibly happen and what position should my business be in? Financial planning, looking at where you can cut, where you can make your business more sustainable without making knee jerk decisions. And
yes,
of course, marketing. Marketing was such a big one, is supporting the entrepreneurs to get in front of their audience in a different way, which also supported them with the anxiety they were feeling because they had lost so many clients. And now they're figuring, how can we get in front of these guys again? So those are some of the things that the Branson Center started to do. And we even created a platform that was free for the public to get access to all of this. Um,
mhm,
from a thriving CEO perspective, I created this brand because I want to support entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants to become CEOs of their lives and business, but not just be a CEO, be a thriving CEO. Be successful from a financial perspective, successful from a well-being perspective primarily, and just find freedom and fulfillment. So I'm very excited about this brand. I'm very excited about where I'm going to be taking it, coupling my love of wellness and all that I've done with the entrepreneurial side of me. So
And where can we find that?
Yeah, so you can find me at thrivingceo.co.
Oh, lovely. And are you on? I can just download it on Apple and so on. Search for
Yes,
you on Apple
yes. You
Podcast.
can search for Thriving CEO and you can find me there. I do speaking about this topic, finding your niche, and my 4S system as well as my 3S system. I love the acronyms.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, Lauri-Ann, for joining us. I feel more peaceful talking to you as I always do. Lori has some really cool things that she does as well that we didn't even talk about, like Reiki, like energy, and thinking through how to heal yourself when you're in this downward spiral space. So thank you so much, Lori. I love chatting with you like
Thank
this.
you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for having me, Lissandra. Take care, everyone. Be well.
Take care. And before we bring our next guest on to really talk about the financial piece of recovering and bouncing back from the financial exhaustion, I actually want to pick up on something that Laurie said at the end there, which was scenario planning. So you have your best case based on where you are right now, the middle case, and the worst case scenario. And you start mapping out actions that you can take in each of those scenarios so that you can start getting out of your head and going round and round and putting things on paper. So what I think it was Wally that said loan officers and bailiffs. Okay, step one, can I negotiate further? Can I go? I think there is someone that you can go to now. I forget, the name is leaving me, but there is mediation now for this kind of financial crisis. You can actually get a trustee of some sorts to help you negotiate all of these different creditors that are coming after you. So you start mapping out each of these actions that you could take, because even though it feels very bleak when you're in the midst of this crisis, there are steps that you can take there to start inching your way out of it. And once you get them down on paper in a scenario analysis, you start feeling more, well, a little bit more unburdened, because now it's in a map in front of you, like, okay, this is what I can do from the position that I'm in. So I love that Laurie touched on that. Scenario analysis, financial planning, really important to help you stop the downward spiral, and start thinking of actions to come out of it. So with that introduction, let me bring on our second guest of the evening, which is Nadia Jervis, Senior Relationship Manager for Corporate and Commercial Banking at NCB. Nadia is a career banker with over 20 years of experience and is currently the Senior Relationship Manager leading the commercial team at NCB in the Corporate and Commercial Banking unit. In her role, she is responsible for providing leadership that will drive the development and execution of strategies required to grow, retain, and develop a high value client portfolio. And she has a range of clients that she helps to support. She's seen a range of responses to the pandemic, and I can't wait to hear what advice and what situations and examples that she can give us. So, welcome, Nadia. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Hi, Alessandra. How you doing?
Thanks for joining. So before we jump in, Dr. Colette, what's up, Dr. Colette? Long time no see. Has a wonderful tip for Wally, who is feeling financial anxiety right now. Wally may consider loan consolidation, which allows a combination of liabilities and simplifying payments at one interest rate from a single lender. And if you need a little update, Nadia, Wally is struggling because he's having collectors and loan officers calling him night and day, and he's in the grip of financial anxiety, and he really wants us to give him some tips. So, Nadia, maybe we can start there. Any tips off the top of your head for Wally?
Sure. I was listening a while ago with Wally's particular situation, and I know that it must be very stressful on him.
Yeah.
I would say I agree with exploring some loan consolidation. I would say to him as well, just always keep your financial institution informed. I mean, I know they're calling, I know they're asking for a payment, but maybe well, I don't know if you've done it already, but speak to them, find out if there's another payment plan that can you can work out. Tell them
Yeah.
what you can afford, and whatever you and the financial institution discuss, please just stick to the plan. They want to see that you are dedicated to, well, that you will repay, and it's not a situation, it's an extenuating circumstance, especially now in this time. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I don't know if that's a part of what he can do. Maybe he can, I don't know if he can pay a portion to maybe
Mm-hmm.
pay down part of the debt and then try to work out a smaller payment monthly.
Yes, and I really like what you said first about communication,
Yeah,
because I think that is so critical. I think a lot of people don't realize how much you can negotiate and communicate with your banker, as long as the line of communication is open and you don't shut down and stop ghost them, right? Stop answering calls,
exactly,
etc.
exactly. Don't
That's
disappear, Wally.
that's the absolute worst thing you can do in a situation like this. But continuing to talk, continuing to tell them the situation, continuing to say, listen, I'm trying everything. Listen, this is my plan. These are the steps. Listen, this is what I can do right now. I need another moratorium. What can you
Yes,
do? And just
right,
having that conversation, so important. Don't just run away. Don't ghost. Communicate, and your
right.
outcome will be much, much better. So, Nadia, tell us a little bit more about exactly what your role is at NCB.
So, as we had said before, I'm really responsible for the sales team that manages the commercial client portfolio at NCB. Specifically, we focus on lending to that segment.
Mm-hmm.
However, we want to be your financial partner of choice. So, if there are any other needs, of course, we can put you to other representatives within the group: NCB Capital Markets, Guardian Life, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So you deal with commercial clients and lending to these big
right.
commercial clients, and they are also feeling the financial stress of the current situation that we're in. So, can you give us, without divulging any kind of details, but can you just share with us some examples of the kind of financial anxiety that you're witnessing during this time?
Well, during this time, Lisandra, I've really been getting some real serious panic calls.
Yeah.
Just really, business owners, they don't know what to do during this time. It's a lot of, talking, as you said, communicating, speaking to them, really listening to what their issues are. But a lot of panic calls, especially when we were having the lockdowns.
Yes.
I don't know if you can even recall, last year was Spanish Town lockdown.
Right.
Workers can't come in. It is truly an exceptional and extraordinary occurrence that we're going through right now. So we have been getting those calls.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So, what does a banker, how do you respond when you're getting calls like this? What can you really do in that situation to help ease that financial anxiety that your clients are experiencing?
Well, I mean, definitely we sit down and listen. I know that sat down and listened to all of the concerns because we're so integrally involved in the customers and their businesses. We actually know exactly what is going on, their financial position. If it's at the time we sit down, we bring up the financials. We say, maybe you could do this. What do you think? We give them some advice. Try to see where we can help in any way or form. That is the best that we do for them.
Yes. So, give us some more kind of ideas or around the kind of advice that you give.
Okay.
Like, is it a plan, a cash flow plan? What kind of feedback do you give?
Well, yes, we look at how the business flows are, how the operational business is going.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some clients, they even though it's a time of stress, they can access financing. So we
Yeah.
may recommend some
Interesting.
short, yes. So even though it's very stressful, but a lot of entrepreneurs, of course, they think into the future. So they say, if
Yeah.
this continues, what do I do? So we say, okay, you still can get financing. So let's put in place some a pre-approved facility so that in the event it gets worse, it is
Mm-hmm.
available to you. All of the paperwork is done. It's sitting down there. If it comes to that, you can pull on it to inject liquidity into your business. So that's
Interesting.
some of the advice that we offer the customers.
Okay, so if I am a commercial client that has had a relationship with you and you've been in the business with me and you've seen my financials, when I'm in a bind, when my revenues drop, you actually, given that history of the relationship and given the communication, you are actually willing to offer lending support even in the middle of a crisis. If that, like, tell me what the client needs to have had with you to for you to be able to offer that kind of support in a crisis.
Well, for some of those clients, I mean, they've been fun. They've been, we are their sole banker. So
Yeah.
we see all of the flows of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add to that, Lisandra, and you had said it before to Wally, we do offer moratorium, we do grant moratorium periods on
Yes.
existing facilities if the need requires.
Mm-hmm.
So we also offer that. So we would, in any case, we have the history of the customer. So we'll be looking at all of the flows.
Yes.
Perhaps they have a collateral package already at the bank with their existing lending. Maybe their debt has been repaid significantly. Maybe while the flows may have fallen, maybe they have plans for the future, immediate future, because a lot of businesses now are diversifying. They're
Mm-hmm.
adding new product lines. Maybe they need a little runway to get that up and running. We can help them, you know, with their
Mm-hmm.
liquidity during that period. So there are different situations that can, facilitate additional funding.
Interesting. So, what I've heard from you so far, two products or things that you've done for your clients. One is a moratorium. And actually, last year we heard a lot about
Right.
moratoriums, not as much this year, but last year there was big moratorium extensions from banks for business owners. And then the second thing that you said is you would also, in cases where the company has a great history with the bank, you would offer a short term facility to bridge that gap of a sudden crisis in cash flows. Tell me about some of the other products that you may have on the radar, not just in a pandemic, but in general for helping companies manage that cash flow cycle, that up and down, boom and bust.
Okay, well, I think you spoke about revolving facilities before. So we do offer that to assist with working capital
What is
injection.
that exactly? Let's explain.
So
What is a revolver?
so basically, it's a line of credit that's available to you. You
Yeah.
draw on it when you need it. You repay it, maybe during a certain time period. When you repay it, the balance, you can still access the funds. So if you
Mhm.
have $100 revolver and you've drawn 50 and you repay 50, you can get back the 50. So
Right.
it doesn't close. So you
And
still have
who?
the line available to you.
Mhm.
So basically, it's something that you borrow the money, you repay it. We also offer short-term facilities, over 3 month period, over 6 month period,
Yes.
where you repay. But that would be an identified source of um, repayment that you would have identified. Maybe it is that you're bringing as part of your cycle of your inventory. You're going to get or maybe the services you offer. You're going to get a bulk payment in 6 months time. Maybe
Yes.
assistance in launching that task, or with your customer you need some assistance upfront. We can
Yes.
provide it with the intention that you will repay at the when you presumably will be collecting on that receivable, and you repay back.
Right, exactly. So basically, a revolving facility is usually used by people who know they're going to get a payment at the end, but they need some cash now to produce the goods or what have you, create inventory to sell, etc. So you draw down on the revolving facility to produce those goods, and then you pay it back once the money comes in from the sale, and you keep that cycle. That helps you smooth out the cycle of boom and bust in your cash flows. We talked earlier about a loan consolidation. Have in this financially anxious time, have you explored that with any clients? Like, what does that conversation look like around loan consolidation?
Most definitely, Lissandra, we do discuss that quite a bit. Debt
Yeah.
consolidation. Usually, different clients have different facilities with, many of the financial institutions. Right now is a time when, everybody has more time to focus. So that when they're looking through their balance sheet, they might see, various facilities across all financial institutions with different interest rates, different terms. So it's sometimes, to just bulk it all together in the future, it's cheaper. So
Yes.
we do look at that option definitely. Some people at this time definitely they want to have one. They don't want to have many different people paying, so they said they want to consolidate the business at one bank. They will come to us and say, look at all of this. How can you put this together? In addition to that, maybe the different all the facilities have different repayment periods.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe they want to come and say, okay, just, give me one loan for an extended period. I know that this is my monthly payment and it is for this time. That also can cut their costs, their
Yeah.
finance costs.
Interest is good. So the other thing I'm thinking about too is when you're in a bind, some of the advice is to sell assets, right? And a lot of people have been selling assets in order to get some cash. Do you guys help your clients think about, do I have any assets to sell? Do you help them with that process?
Definitely, we discuss all of those things. The sale, do you want to sell? Is it a good time? Do
Yes.
you really want to offload this very valuable asset now? Can you leverage it? Can you
Use it as
support,
collateral.
use it as collateral until things ease? Every business is going, they're going through unique problems right now and challenges. So we really
Mhm.
have to look at the whole picture. It might be good for a company now to sell this asset based on the position, the financial position they're in. But you have to,
Mhm.
so you can't say, I have this asset, I'm just going to sell. You really have to look at the entire picture to see if it is a
Mhm.
good time, and we help them through that and to think through that.
So far we've talked about moratorium, we've talked about short-term facilities, we've talked about revolving credit lines, and we talked about loan consolidation and then supporting with selling assets. When is the right time to sell an asset? Which assets should you sell to get
Right.
cash in the door? So the next question I have is on the working capital kind of conversation. So receivables. Cash
Yeah.
flow 101 for business owners is when you're in a cash bind, you have to collect faster. So collect your receivables, outstanding payments, and stretch out your payables, stretch out the payments that you make to your creditors. Now, is that something that you guys actually look at, receivables financing, or any advice around collecting and stretching out payments?
So we do have receivables financing is done at NCB, but it's on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
So we do look at it from time to time. What I would
What is it
say,
exactly?
well, the clients or our customer would have, say, a receivable from a very, strong third party, right? That they supply, and maybe that company pays, I don't know, every 90 days, but they need the cash now.
Yes.
We could look at, buying that receivable for them at a discount so they get the cash right now,
Yeah.
and then the 90 days we would collect whatever is outstanding to them.
From the
So we
customer.
do look right. So we do look at it on a case by case basis.
Those
What we
receivables have to be strong.
Right. But what we found, Lisandro, during this time are that the clients are really paying keen focus on just collecting.
Yeah.
So they've been hiring up on their receivables on their receivables team to ensure that the daily calls are made, etc. But yes, we do get the requests for receivables financing.
Interesting. All right. So, when it comes to managing finances effectively, managing cash flows, what advice do you have for clients to prevent getting into this state of financial anxiety?
Well, it's definitely, I think Laurie spoke to it. It's just planning,
Yeah.
real planning. Strategy, looking at what the worst outcome could be and planning for that scenario. I
Mhm.
have seen businesses that have always had that, they've had that at their, just as their basic fundamental operating. That's what they do. They've been before the pandemic,
Yeah.
and right now they are in. I'm not saying that maybe their revenues have fallen off when I went off, but they can't weather the storm because they have maybe they have a deposit. Maybe they
Yeah.
have that pre-approved facility that they can draw on in this time because they
Mm.
were planning for it before. So it is there, and they can now draw on it. So it's really just planning, speaking to colleagues within the market, because you can learn a lot from your fellow business operators and
Yeah.
what they have been doing to weather the storm. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, I'll give you a chance to turn the light back on, Nadia. But one thing that really resonates with me is this idea of, before getting into a bind, what can we do to prevent that? And we had someone on earlier, Simon Johnson, who is guru in training, and he really had some great advice around developing an emergency fund. That's that kind of language is for your personal finances, but if you had reserves in your business going into a crisis, if you are saving a little every month in order to be able to withstand a cash flow crisis in your business, that can be a good way to help you ward off that anxiety when that crisis actually happens. So, building up reserves early,
Right.
if you have the capacity, when the times are good, building up reserves and not just running at very thin margins. Nadia, you wanted to comment on that?
Right. So, right. It's exactly as you said, Lisandra. During the times of plenty, or when things are going great, businesses, your revenues are up, you be generating your sales. As you say, you put aside some.
Yeah.
You put aside some. I know that is also hard because a lot of companies, they want to grow. Um, but you still need to put aside some funds. And as I said, even if you are unable to do that, you can negotiate some type of standby line that you can access in the times when you need it. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you're coming at that time, it might be a different picture. And it might be just better you do it during the time when things are going great.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and so that is the preventative measure to build reserves in the business. And now, once we're already in the crisis, we've talked about some products you have, but any general advice on how to take yourself out of a crisis, bounce back once you're already in the crisis?
Well, I would say, Lisandra, definitely look at the lessons you've learned
Yeah,
during
yeah.
this time. I know some companies are really going through a crisis situation. It might be very difficult to, as you say, climb out of it. However, the best way is to just start small, little by little. Clawing away at the things that you know you can do during this time. I'm sure that businesses have been focused on what their efficiencies, cost cutting measures. Maybe you need to continue on that path. Take the small steps because it could mean a bigger win in the end. You might not see it happen right now, but stick to it. And the cost cutting, of course, will help you get out of your current experiences that you're having
Yeah.
right now. Also, speaking to your financial advisors again, speaking to your colleagues in the sector to see if there are other things out there that maybe you don't know about that you can help yourself to climb out of the position that you're in.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So write down the insights that you're
Right.
getting from this period. Even though you feel very much in turmoil, it's really important to step back and say, okay, let me write down what I'm learning right now. How did I get here? How can I prevent myself from getting here again? And just taking the lessons from this very tough moment. Very important. And then cut expenses to the bare minimum, increase collections as much as possible, and in the very worst case, pursue an asset sale, selling assets to bring cash in the business. And not Nadia, do you know this word I was trying to think of when you is it receive like when you're in that almost bankrupt state, there's a receiver that gets appointed or a trustee that
Um,
helps you,
well,
right?
yes, there is a receiver that
Yes,
the company can go into receivership. A receiver
yes,
is appointed. I'm not sure if
right.
that's exactly what you're speaking
Well,
about because I think we're
I've
talking to Wally, so I wasn't
Oh,
sure.
well, just in general, SMEs that I've seen who've had a really, really rough time, actually, they got appointed someone, for a mediator of sorts, to
Right.
negotiate on their behalf with the banks, etc., in the very, very worst case scenarios. And there's somewhere that you can go as an SME and ask for someone to be appointed to help you negotiate. That's what I'm really thinking of
Okay.
here.
Okay. I'm not sure of the exact entity right now,
Yes,
but
me neither. I can't remember it, but I remember seeing it in some entrepreneurs that I worked with that actually went to this body and got appointed someone to help them negotiate in the very, very worst case scenario. So if you've already cut costs, if you've already collected as much as you can, if you sold assets already and you're still owing money, then you need to get help from someone who can help mediate on your behalf. Any final thoughts, Nadia, as we close out on this section?
Well, I would just say during this time, I think it's just a great. I mean, I know it is difficult, but there is opportunity. There's opportunity to be more efficient with your business, to right
Yeah.
size, to dig deep, and just continue motivating yourself and your team, because that is what is going to drive you, out of what we're experiencing now. And of course,
Natalie is
consult your advisors, your
yes.
financials. Mhm.
Natalie has the word for me. Arbitrator is
Right,
yes, you
arbitrator.
get appointed an
Yes,
arbitrator who
yes.
can negotiate on your behalf. And you're absolutely right, Nadia, that you have to get the mindset right before you can pursue any solutions. Because when you're on a downward spiral of financial exhaustion and financial anxiety, the solutions are not coming to you. And you're going to people with that energy of urgency, desperation. You're having conversations from that space, and it can lead to not a very productive conversation. So first you have to do whatever you can to calm yourself down. Talk to someone, talk to your advisors, not just financial but your SMEs, like you said, Nadia. Listen to podcasts, read books to just calm down, and then start planning and saying, what are my actual steps here? And even in the worst case scenario, an arbitrator can even give you some ideas that you may not even have thought of before.
That's right.
So, Nadia, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I know a lot of people are really feeling it. NCB is a wonderful partner for us at CovidCast, and I'm sure your clients feel the same way about you, Nadia. So, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Okay, thanks, Sandra.
All right. So, guys, in the comments, any final words, any final thoughts? I would love to hear from you on this episode. We covered the wellness piece, the taking care of yourself piece, systems, support, and self care. You have to manage your way out of this crisis, of this anxiety that you're feeling. That was what we learned from Lauri-Ann Ainsworth, CEO of the Branson Center, executive coach, speaker, podcaster, and all around wonderful lady. And then Nadia came on and spoke to us about the financial piece. What are some of the actual things that a bank can help you with when you're in this crisis? We talked about getting a moratorium on payments and stretching that moratorium out. I remember last year there was a 12-month moratorium at some point from some institutions, right? We talked about loan consolidation. We talked about short-term bridge credit facilities to get you through a crisis. We talked about selling assets if you need to, but really trying to cut expenses as much as you can before you get to that state. Narda Ventura is saying create alliances in your product offerings and don't be afraid to pivot. You may surprise yourself. Narda, I'm so glad you made that point. I myself, as an SME that experienced whole heap of financial anxiety last year, I pivoted. I went from business to consumer to business, and that really changed the financial situation in my business. So thank you for that comment, Narda. And we also talked about writing down the lessons that you're learning, the insights, so that you can help yourself not get into the same position again in the future, and getting advice from experts in your life, whether it's financial experts, whether it's other business owners that you can talk to. And finally, if you need an arbitrator, go and talk to a legal person to help you navigate your way out. If you are out of ideas, you need to get ideas from other people who have been there already. You're not the first person who's been in a financially anxious situation. Talk to other people who have navigated out of it. Dr. Colette is saying, so true. When you feel desperate, unscrupulous creditors can take advantage of you, or if they're uncertain of your ability to pay, they could charge you higher rates than you could have negotiated when calm. So that mindset piece and calming yourself, very important. Christine is saying, I really benefited from this episode. The wellness element, along with the careful, practical approach to finances, both are equally important. Thank you. And thank you, Christine, for joining. Thank you all for engaging so much. Before we go, let me just remind you, If you go to smallbusinessportal.com, you can sign up and get reminded weekly for these episodes of CovidCast. We go live every week, Thursday, 7:30 to 8:30. So sign up to our mailing list, get our memos, which have the frameworks that we talk about every week. Very, very valuable information. And we're putting on a conference around building wealth on October 22nd and 24th. On the 22nd, we're going to be talking about building business wealth. And then on the 24th, we're going to be talking about building generational wealth for you and your family. The conference is free and open, and we want everybody to join. We want thousands of people on talking about building wealth. So important. Conversations around financial sustainability, understanding your cash flow, like we discussed here, and even the spiritual laws of money and how your personality affects how you manage your money. We're going to talk about all of that at this conference. So make sure you go to smallbusinessportal.com to register. This CovidCast episode, as always, has been brought to you by the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, along with our sponsors, NCB Group. We had Nadia on from NCB, as well as JMMB Group. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us this week and every week. And we'll see you same time, same place next week, Thursday.
So you have a great idea to start a business, but you don't know where to start. We completely understand. You have a lot of questions and almost no answers. Smallbusinessportal.com is here to help. At smallbusinessportal.com, you gain access to information on loans, grants, and investment opportunities from verified financial institutions. Guess what you also get? Useful business tips, access to training. All these services combine to make your business idea into a reality. Start your journey today at smallbusinessportal.com.